So Douglas, it was one of your ideas to make philosophy one of the central themes of the show. Why is that?
Yeah, so for me, let's come clean about our backgrounds, right? So I'm obviously not a qualified philosopher. Even though at university I took a little bit of philosophy, but really I didn't major in it. That wasn't my major. So really philosophy is a casual interest, so let's put it that way. And the most important thing philosophy does, I feel, is that it asks questions, right? And it's something that not a lot of us think about consciously, because maybe we feel that we have all the answers. We could have been brought up in a certain religion, or we brought up in a certain spiritual system, or even if you are secular, perhaps you think that you know it all already. So that's what I like about philosophy, that you can find so much material there, and philosophers basically what they like to do, what's their job, what's their purpose. Their task is to, drill us, right, to scrutinize, everyday assumptions, taken for granted assumptions, and really subject it to very rigorous analysis, And, you may not necessarily find that you always would, say change your mind, but you certainly would have a, much bigger body of knowledge, and you would certainly come to understand your own opinions and your own values a little bit, more clearer. So that's how I look at it. What about you? Like you took philosophy, so what drew you to it? And what still influences you or motivates you to study philosophy?
Yeah, so I actually majored in philosophy in college, wrote my thesis on it, and I discovered philosophy probably around the age of 15 when I started looking at philosophy books in the school library, read a bit of Plato and Aristotle. And similar to yourself, I just really liked the questions that philosophers were asking. And they just seemed very relevant to trying to figure out how to live a meaningful life. And so philosophy has been a lifelong passion for me. Even when I went on to do other things like filmmaking, I would always try to find ways of bringing philosophy into the picture.
Yeah. So we talk about this, right? Which is one of your favorite philosophers is David Hume, right? So can you tell us a little bit about your specific area of interest, and what David Hume brings to the table?
Yeah. Well, I could talk for 20 minutes on that, but I'll just talk about the thesis that I wrote, which was called Hume's Guillotine. And it's about his is-ought distinction or fact-value distinction. And it's this idea that there is, this guillotine, this unbridgeable gap between facts and values. And no matter how much we agree on the facts, it doesn't necessarily mean that we will agree on the values. And I think that even after, so many decades since I wrote the thesis, I still feel that discussion is very relevant to society today, because you see a lot of people having arguments and debates, and it's really very fluid when they shift the arguments between arguing about facts and arguing about values. And I think if we have a lot more conceptual clarity over that, it will help improve our debates.
Yeah. So to me, actually, I was thinking about this a little bit, and I was thinking of a contemporary example of this. And actually, it's with COVID right now, right? Because I think there is, to some degree, everyone agrees on the facts about COVID. What kind of a disease it is, what it does to the human body. But everyone has different values or different perceptions or different opinions about how it should be dealt with, right? And I think that's this is very exemplary of how we may all maybe even agree on the facts, or even some facts are disputed, right? Let's also acknowledge that. And everyone's coming with a different value system about how it should be dealt with, because some people don't believe in, what do you call it, like lockdown measures. Some people think that just let it be, we can achieve herd immunity, even if we don't adopt certain measures. Everyone's coming with different ideas, even if there's some base level of factual agreement, right? So so that's actually how I thought about one very contemporary example where this comes into place. You got any have you seen anything in your life or any social events where this issue is very topical to you, very pertinent to you?
I think it's everything.
Yeah, right,
I see it
right.
everywhere.
Yeah,
whether it's talking about the climate emergency or inequality, I think that this issue of facts versus values is just, it's very relevant. I was thinking of illustration that I came across recently that highlights the unique types of questions that philosophy is asking. So it's the story of Theseus, who is a Greek hero, and he's setting out, on a ship, right? And as he makes his travels, he has to repair his ship plank by plank. And by the end of his journey, he's actually replaced every single plank on his ship. And so the question is, at the end of that, is it still the same ship as it was when he left? Now, to answer that question isn't about facts, right? Because we can all agree on the facts, like every single piece of the ship was replaced. But is it the same ship? I mean, that depends on how different frames and different lenses we take to look upon it.
Yeah.
So, that's the kind of questions that philosophy likes to ask.
Yeah. So, you know what? I actually like that you brought this up. Can you just say it again? This is the, what do you describe it again?
Thesis' ship.
Thesis' ship. So do you watch Marvel movies or Marvel TV shows?
Yeah.
So do you know that this was actually used in one of the most recent TV shows, the Wandavision? You didn't know that, right?
No.
So here's where actually pop culture actually has adopted, philosophical conundrums like this. So, okay, so first thing, this is a spoiler. So just for the viewers to know, right? Basically in the show WandaVision, there's this character called Vision, right? And there's actually at the finale, so this is the last episode, spoilers again, right? There's actually two of them, and they actually brought this up. One of them brings it up to the other character, the other Vision, and says, have you heard about the Thesis ship? And the idea is that you, as a different Vision, you are actually reconstituted from different parts, but are you Vision himself? Yeah. So
Wow.
see, yeah. So I actually love it a lot when pop culture brings in philosophy, because I think it makes it much more relevant to, it really helps the general audience see the richness of philosophy and how it's interesting, it's entertaining, and it makes you think a lot harder about many other issues in life. I also want to also discuss, just to let our viewers know, right? Like, we don't want to make philosophy so abstract, and I want to, be a bit more personal with our viewers, right? So I'm going to talk a bit about Schopenhauer just to kind of set the stage. So Schopenhauer is a German philosopher, and I got introduced to him through Brian McGee, which is a very early influence in my life. And basically, Schopenhauer is a pessimist, and pessimist philosophers or pessimist life systems are not very favorable. Yeah, but I like Schopenhauer. For Schopenhauer, just to make it relevant to our viewers, he is someone who sees life as suffering and pain, and he has a really, really bad childhood. Yeah, his mother really disliked him, and he was really a very lonely man. So what I like from Schopenhauer and how it brings it back to what we were talking about in terms of rationality is that we are not rational beings, right? We have irrational desires, beliefs, and perhaps even values. So in any case, the idea is that we're always striving to desire something in life. And even if we attain it, so, I can imagine for someone it could be like, okay, I'll speak from my perspective. Maybe if I want to buy the PlayStation 5, so I know that the PlayStation 5 doesn't add any true meaningful value to my life. I don't need it. I don't even have it right now. But it's nevertheless a desire that I have because, I just want to, have a better or a higher aesthetic experience of playing a video game, right? And I know that even if I do attain it one day, and I probably will, but it's a very, very short-lived experience. Like, it's going to just fill up my needs in a very, very short term. And then there's going to be something else that I will be desiring and, something else that I will want to have. So what I like about his way of thinking is that essentially, just to make it a very, very simple statement, is that we're always going to lead very semi-satisfied lives. Like, we are always constantly on this quest to get something, be disappointed that it didn't really bring us true happiness, and then we're going to go for the next thing. And to me, it also means that it's hard to live life thinking that you should expect happiness. Like, that's a very, very unsatisfactory way of leading life, because, or maybe too demanding, I would put it that way, because there are people who think that they deserve to have happiness, that other people, like their lovers, their family, their friends, should be giving them happiness, and they become very resentful and they become very angry if they're not happy, and they blame it on other people. And that's also something that, you know, that comes from Schopenhauer. And, you know, I'm going to be honest, I can see in some people, right? Yeah, I have friends like that who I feel like that's what is their worldview. They blame other people for them not having happiness. So yeah, and just as a side note, like, I think it's so reflected in my taste of music. Like, all my music, the best songs that I like are pretty dreadful, like The King of Pain by The Police, Misery by Soul Asylum. Yeah, so my life seems very dark. Yeah.
I'm actually a pessimist by nature as well.
Yeah.
In fact, from the age of 15, I think I had a quote from Schopenhauer on my bedroom wall.
Oh, wow.
I can't remember the exact quote, but it had something to do with life swings between either boredom
and
or pain, right?
Yes, that's right.
It's such a bleak vision, because if you're not in pain, you're going to be bored.
Yeah.
If you're not bored, you're going to be in pain.
Wow, I didn't know that you've had this quote from. Yeah, and let's be honest, I don't see you as a pessimistic person. You look pretty happy and you look pretty jubilant. And maybe that's because of how much philosophy you read.
I think it's a testament to pessimism. I think, you know, pessimism is actually is something that can help you in life. Like, I think they did a study on people in concentration camps and who thrived and who survived and who didn't. And actually they found that the pessimists were the ones who were more likely to survive.
Yeah, and let me explain that for our viewers. The reason why is because the optimists were always thinking that by Christmas Day they will be released. And when they weren't released on Christmas Day, or when there's some particular holiday that, you know, obviously they were not released, and, you know, they're still trapped and still oppressed in the prison camp, that's why they were suicidal and demoralized, and yeah, you know, so yeah, that's the flip side of you know, the pitfalls of positive thinking. So anyway, how would you recommend someone to approach philosophy? Yeah, so say someone's watching us right now and maybe getting a little bit interested, you know, how would you suggest someone approaches philosophy if they couldn't go to a university to study for it?
You know, for me, the great thing that philosophy has brought into my life is a permission to question. I think that's really what philosophers' role in society is. They give everyone permission to question. And so for someone who's just starting out, it really would be just to observe or see what are the questions that you are curious about. And a lot of times when I see other people involved in a discussion or argument, I see there's a lot of confusion. And sometimes it's because they're not asking the right questions. And I think philosophy gives you that freedom to think in different ways. And, you know, I'm an introvert, so even though I may not always have the courage to voice my question, but at least inside my own head, it's something that I can mull over or think on my own. So yeah, I think anyone who's interested in this should just think about what are the subjects they're interested in, and then find out what philosophers have written about it, and I'm sure they'll find some interesting angle.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask a really, really tough question for both of us. Do you think in this video we've answered the question why philosophy lies?
I'm not sure. It's a hard question to answer.
Subjecting us to critical scrutiny. That's what I'm trying to do here. Have we done that? Yeah.
I think it depends on who you are. So if we're asking, like, let's say, working class viewer, I'm not sure if we have answered that question. Like, how is it directly relevant to someone who's struggling to pay the bills, struggling with, you know, the daily struggles of life?
Yeah, you got a good point there. And how I would answer it is something like this. Obviously, for people who are just laden with so much work, with very little time to read, to reflect and meditate, you know, basically philosophy can be a form of meditation in some sense. It's too demanding to ask them to read a complete book even. It might be just too much. So I think what we can try to do today is kind of tease that out. We've spoken a little bit about our history. We are trying to get people to feel that we can be, like mentors. I mean, we're not, like we mentioned before, not fully accredited philosophers, but we are, in some sense, like a secondary school teacher or a tutor who's trying to lead you to this, this library of good stuff, right?
I do want to challenge that image, though, of us as, let's say, a secondary school teacher and being guides to this treasure house. And, because I think the traditional model of education is that the teacher has all this information inside their heads that they're trying to impart or communicate. And actually, the model of education that I prefer is much more relational, where the teacher can learn as much from the student as vice versa. And so there's so much that we need to learn about where people are coming from, what their interests and their needs are. And I would love to find a way that can inform our conversation.
From you saying that, you're clearly advertising to our viewers that we want to bring in some people into our show. So I agree with you, obviously, that we want to have other, you want to have other people to come and converse with us so that we can also as much learn from them as much as we learn from each other. So so do you want to end this video with a quote? Shall we end this video with a quote?
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah. So this is from Bertrand Russell, right? And I hope that this quote will really help to make it clear what's so good about philosophy. So it goes: philosophy cannot itself determine the ends of life, but it can free us from the tyranny of prejudice and from distortions due to a narrow view. Love, beauty, knowledge, and joy of life. These things retain the lustre, however wide our purview. And if philosophy can help us to feel the value of these things, it will have played its part in man's collective work of bringing light into a world of darkness. So reactions.
I love the quote. Bertrand Russell is one of the great stylists of philosophy. Like, he wrote beautifully as well. And I think beauty. I like the fact that you mentioned beauty. I think that's very important because ultimately, that's what life is for. There has to be something beautiful about life that makes us always look forward to it.
And let's say this. Let me say this. There are lots of values here, like things like love, beauty, knowledge, and joy of life. And me just saying, of Bertrand Russell just saying these things, even these things can be further deconstructed and scrutinized. What is love? What is beauty? And there's a whole rabbit hole. There's a big rabbit hole of where philosophers have taken these concepts and interrogate them, and had fierce disagreements about what they mean. And I guess for us, that's what we're trying to do here as well. We're just trying to see whether we can also take these concepts and give our own flavor and interpretation of them.